So I normally would like wait a minute to start so people can trickle in, but I inadvertently prepared a talk that would probably better fit in about 45 minutes, and then realized I only had a half hour today. So I'm going to just jump in, and that also means, if you want to ask questions in the chats, I can try to address those. But also the last slide will have my email on it, and you can always just send me questions later if you want to follow up. So hello, my name is Andy Rahn. I'm a principal developer at Modern Logic. I've been a software developer professionally for about 20 years. Spent the bulk of my career at Adobe, building products that have been used by millions of people around the world. But now I'm at Modern Logic, where we help startups, mostly in the Twin Cities, succeed on new business ventures. It's an exciting place to be, and I love the Twin Cities entrepreneur scene. So a little bit about Modern Logic. So, we're a digital product studio. We're helping entrepreneurs build products from what we call spark to scale. So whether you're just starting, we help you ideate and figure out what the MVP, the minimal viable product that you would build, would be. And we also help established companies scale their business in new ways, new platforms, and what have you. So today I'm going to talk about what it's like to talk and work with a development team. As an entrepreneur, you have some expertise in business, and you need to hire someone to help you solve some technical problems to make that business a success. So I've broken this down into basically four sections. The first is I'm going to talk a little bit about software development methodologies, just so you understand how software is traditionally built. Next, I'm going to cover what are the important responsibilities that you have as the entrepreneur to help your development team be successful. Then we'll go on to what it's like to work together with a professional development organization. And finally, some parting thoughts on how you make sure you plan for the future success of your business after that initial development is done. So we'll start out with talking about software development methodologies. If you were, I assume, naively to think about how one goes about building software, you probably would say, well, as a business entrepreneur, I'll just tell you what I need, and then you, development team, will go off and build it, and then tell me when you're done. And actually, that is traditionally how software was built. It's called Waterfall. And there's a requirements period up front where the specification is built. It says all the things the software needs to do. And traditionally, that would then be bid by development firms. And the lowest bidder would get the project, and they'd go off and build it. And then when they're all done, they'd ship it to you, and you'd be like, here it is. I hope you like it. And actually, that I hope you like it is one of the biggest problems with Waterfall. Because if it's not right, you really get no opportunity to ask, well, wait, can you change something? It's really just a take it or leave it situation. The other even bigger problem, though, is that often that initial bid isn't accurate, and there will be a cost overrun. The budget will be exhausted, but the product isn't finished. And since it was an all or nothing deal, that means you've spent the money and you have nothing to show for it until you pony up additional funds to have it finished. Also, let's be honest, that initial requirement is very difficult to write, especially for a business entrepreneur who's not an expert in software, because you won't know all the details to include that specifies functioning software. There's so many things that go into a working software product that as users, we just kind of casually gloss over. Like one of my favorite examples is probably a sign-in, sign-up experience. How many times have you gone to some website and had to create an account and sign in? We don't even think about it anymore. But it turns out there are so many decisions involved in that really impact your business. For example, if it requires an email address, people who don't have access to email can't use your service. Or similarly, a phone number. That seems actually kind of obvious when I say it, but a lot of people don't think it through and end up in a bind later on realizing, oh, we have to change all of this that was decided months ago, only because we realized the implications further down the road. So requirements are very hard to get right initially. So what we suggest as an alternative is something called lean or agile development. And I actually lived through the transition from Waterfall to agile development when I was at Adobe. And it's gone through a lot of different names and buzzwords as the community has iterated on this concept. So you might hear other things thrown around like Scrum or XP, extreme programming, and so on. But generally, I think lean and agile is kind of the nomenclature that's in use today. Really, it centers around this idea of building small pieces of the project at a time in a short period of time, usually like 2 weeks. And we call that a sprint. And the idea is after 2 weeks, we'll have something done that we can show you that has a little bit more of the finished product in your hands that you can test. So sure, maybe after the first 2 weeks, all you have is just that sign-in, sign-up experience. And then it just takes you to a blank screen. That doesn't sound that exciting because who cares about sign-in, sign-up? But you can actually start testing it and thinking about, as an end user, is this the right experience for this product that I'm building? So you get the ability to test and sign off on features earlier in the process rather than all at the end. Also, tell me, when in the history of the world has a business known exactly what they needed on day one and not had new information come along the line as they do customer research and they analyze their customers? Exactly. So you're going to need to pivot. So sprints are the perfect way to do that. Every 2 weeks, when you go to plan the next thing, that's your opportunity to go to the developer and say, you know what? What we really need to do is emphasize more on these features over here and less on these there. Well, great. As we're working on the next sprint, we'll put those to the top of the list. Let's see. I think I've probably been talking about some of these advantages. I didn't advance the slide. So yeah, you're going to get a continuous view on your development progress. You can start testing and sign off early. You can adapt, and you can always reprioritize. The advantage. The other advantage, it sounds kind of scary when I show it to you, but it is that you can fail fast. And let's be honest, most new businesses fail. With a lean and agile approach to building your business, you actually get the opportunity to fail sooner. So you actually will have money and energy left to pivot and try again. Whereas if you had spent all your funds on that first idea, that'd be it. So you can build and test quickly. If you fail, come up with something, change it, try again. And the other thing, John actually mentioned this, you can learn from others' mistakes too. So, and I'll touch on this more later, but this is one of the reasons I believe it's so important to have a development team that is experienced and that you trust, because they're going to come to your project not just with the ability to build a product, but with energy and excitement to help you ideate the best way to build the product. And also, if they're connected with their community, they can show you what other people are doing in related businesses. And so it becomes this exciting collaborative effort with your developers. As opposed to if you just bought a bottom dollar development service from someone overseas, they're not going to have that kind of investment in your success. Also, if you're in the position now where you're thinking about how do I hire and find developers, I do want to do a shout out for my friends who are Aaron, who are giving a talk at Twin Cities Startup Week next week called Crash Course on Hiring Developers. That's on Tuesday. So check out that. Okay, so that's a little bit on software methodology. So we can cross that off. So next, I'm going to dig into what are your responsibilities as an entrepreneur to make sure your development team is successful. And I like to call this like being a good partner with your developers, because they're there for you and we want to make them successful. So one of the first things is to make sure that when you say it's time to start development on your technology, that you know what you want. And it turns out it's actually really hard to translate your business requirements into the technical requirements that will be a technical product that makes your business succeed. We've encountered this so many times at Modern Logic with the clients we've worked with. We've actually invented a small product that we encourage all of our clients to use, which we call discovery. The idea behind discovery is that it's the first phase of any of our development life cycle. And what we do in discovery is ideate and figure out how your business needs would best be served by technology. Maybe it is an app, but maybe it'd be better to build a website. Or maybe what you need is a custom device, or perhaps you should white label some piece of technology that you could license as your technology. Maybe using Bluetooth. Like we can think of whole worlds of ways technology can interact with your specific business to make you successful. So if you want to learn more about the discovery process, please get a hold of me. Another way to be a good partner with your development team is to make sure you have a single point of contact with them in terms of who makes decisions. Too many voices can lead to confusion. And as the diagram I'm showing here shows you, the more people you put in the room, the more connections there are between them. So if you can designate one person, and it's usually going to be you, the founder, who has a final say, the development team will always have a clear understanding of when a decision has been made. So kind of also means resist bringing your entire team with you to all the meetings with the developers, because now they're scanning the room, hearing a bunch of different voices, and they're not sure who should they actually listen to. Also, if you decide as a founder you don't have time to make the final decisions and you appoint someone on your behalf, please do not go around them and undercut them. It's going to make your development team crazy because they don't know who to trust here. Kind of correlated with that is, if you're going to come to the meetings, and I've had this happen to me, please be present. We've had people in meetings where decisions are made and talked about, but they were checked out on their phone doing other stuff and didn't realize it. And then later are all up enraged, like, when was this decision made? So if you're going to be there, please be present. And then, not to nitpick on you or anything, but related is try not to flip-flop on decisions once they've been made. And I think what's actually happening here is not that clients are being malicious or capricious. It's just there's so many technical decisions that need to be made that sometimes decisions will be kind of said questioningly, not really realizing what the implications are. So don't be afraid to ask when a developer is asking you some really jargon-laden technical question. Well, how will this affect the end user? And base your decision on that, not whether or not jargon A sounds like a smaller mouthful of syllables than jargon B. And of course, if you don't have the information you need to make a decision, then come back later, schedule more meetings to dig in, because it is important that we make the decisions correctly. Onward with other things you can do to help your development team succeed. Have a project manager. And I can tell you this from experience. When we first started, I've been with Modern Logic 5 years. When we started 5 years ago, we were just a small group of really smart engineers, but we didn't have a project manager. And you get into trouble. So as a founder, you could try to project manage yourself, particularly for a small project. It wouldn't be impossible. But one of the advantages of going with an agency is they have project managers that understand the talents of their development team and designers and can organize all that for you. It's really too much to expect like a lead developer really to manage a project themselves. It just involves so much communication. Also, I think there's a personality kind of conflict where, I feel like developers are people pleasers. And so they tend to try to solve everything with technology and working harder. And a lot of times what you need to succeed is to step back and say, well, maybe if this problem is too hard to solve that way, we should just do something different. You'd be amazed how often developers themselves don't see that. They just want to I'm going to just, no matter how hard this problem is been put in front of them, they're going to try to tear it apart and do it. So what is the role of a project manager? So it's pretty diverse. So for one thing, they're going to check in and make sure everybody has what they need to work. And often they'll run a daily meeting called a stand-up. Stand-up because it's supposed to be such a short meeting that you don't have to sit down for it. And In addition to checking in, they'll make sure everyone has work assigned, and they'll help organize that work, usually using a tool like Jira or Trello. Don't try running a project just with emails. It's not gonna go well. So the nice thing about, say, a software management tool like Jira is everyone has a card, you might call it. It's something you can click on and read, and it allows you to relate with other pieces of work that people are doing, track the progress. You can kind of drag them around to make sure the most important things are done first. So a project manager helps organize all of that. Sometimes you call that the backlog. That's the list of work that needs to be done. Or even just breaking things down into what are the steps to build software. That is a huge task that a project manager helps with. They also, of course, make sure the team is communicating efficiently internally. If a designer has a question for development, or if a developer needs an asset from a designer, they're there to make sure that that communication happens. Also, they're the cheerleader. You know, a development team isn't just like a machine writing code for you. They're part of your business and part of your team. They like to feel invested. They're excited to be building this with you. They're excited to see new businesses succeed. And the project manager is there to make sure that everyone is still energized, believes in this project, and are headed in the right direction together. Also, there's sometimes a little bit of I can't believe the term cat herder. I don't know if you've ever heard that expression. This is going as well as herding cats. You can't herd cats. It's the moral of the story. So you have to get in there and somehow corral these forces and get them going in the same direction together. You know, developers can get pigeonholed on something that's really hard, but might not be important. And that's why it's great to have an outside voice that says, okay, you know, eventually we'll do that. It's not critical for today. Let's move on. It is important that a project manager has some technical know-how, because being the interface between these jargon-laden, you know, geeks writing the code and the business owner requires kind of an insight into both sides, business priorities and also the technical limitations and how the technology works. So what happens if you try to go without a project manager? Well, you know, I've seen a lot of things go wrong without project managers. I wrote down so many ideas. I'm not sure I have time to go through them, but you know, it's amazing. Like the simple little things that just waste your time, and wasting developers' time really just means spending your money as an entrepreneur. You know, sometimes a designer will make a design that looks great, but it's just really hard to implement. That's kind of a problem. But without like a project manager to facilitate how you resolve that, the developer might just get frustrated and just do something else, just so they have something done. But now that hasn't been approved. It might not really function right for you. So that's just a problem in itself. Or then, even if the design is great, the project manager helps make sure that new designs are shown to you. So you get a sign off to say, yeah, that's what I want, or no, that's not right. Without a project manager facilitating that, it's easy for that to accidentally be forgotten. And I have seen it happen where things are implemented, and that's the first time the project owner has ever seen it. And they're like, where did this come from? I'm like, oh, it never was approved. Oops. Other times developers get stuck and they just need someone there to say, you know, let's do it a different way. Sometimes developers need assets, like the actual drawings, to make things look right, and they can't get a hold of the designer. So yeah, I think I've belabored that a point enough now. So let's go back to other things you can do to make sure you're a good partner with your development team. And this is around trust. And it's so important that both sides trust one another. And you may not really have thought of how important it is that your development team trust you, because they're working for you. I mean, they're getting paid, so that should be enough, right? But really, I don't think that's enough, because I can't tell you how often recruiters are calling developers. You know, Amazon has, I think, like 10,000 job postings that you could work for in the Twin Cities right now. The developers you're finding want to work for you, not just because they're getting paid, but because they're passionate and excited about entrepreneurial opportunities, new businesses, helping new businesses succeed, having a chance to really make a mark, not just write another line of code in a monstrous banking app, some, piece of code somewhere. So that's why you want them to trust you. Similarly, you need to trust them, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. So one of the best ways you can foster trust with them is to make sure you share your vision. Don't just say, I need a button here that makes blah, blah, blah happen. Tell them why. Why is that important to your business that it do this? What's the real your customer need that's being solved by building this piece of technology? Because not only does that get them engaged and excited about what you're building together, but it also, it's going to have side benefits where they might think of other ways to solve those problems as well. Because you have to remember, product is core to your business, software is core to that, and developers sharing your vision are going to give you the best software possible. And ultimately, if they don't understand why you're building things, the opportunity for misunderstanding is pretty large, and you're the one footing the bill if they build the wrong thing. That's just the sad truth. Now, the flip side, okay, how do you find a development team that you can really trust? Because you're asking a lot from these people. It's hard. You don't marry the first person you meet, so you need to vet them. Ask hard questions in the beginning, and you should expect good and thoughtful answers to those questions. Try and find former clients, even ones that weren't happy with them. Try to find out what went wrong. Have they addressed those problems? Was it unique to them that won't affect you? And also, if you're not a technical person, one way to go is to actually say, you know what, I'm gonna a third partner in this company. It'll be me, it'll be financing, and it'll be a technical CTO. They're going to be part of my business so they can help evaluate to make sure the technology choices we're making are sound. Another opportunity is to find an agency that you really trust, that has a great reputation, and you say, we're going to trust them to make good choices on our behalf. Okay, those are the ways you earn trust back and forth. Now, also, as the business owner, you can do things that will lose your developers' trust. So please, please, please try not to do these things. And one of my probably biggest pet peeves is the fake deadline. Don't make up, it's got to be done by Thursday, just because you maybe are thinking, well, that way I'll be sure to have it by 2 weeks from Thursday. Or I feel like they're not working hard enough, so I'm going to put some pressure on them to get it done. The fact is, a good development team is going to rise to meet your challenges, to make sure they're real. Because, for one thing, if you artificially pressure them, they'll start cutting corners to get something to you by that date. But if you cut too many corners, you've now introduced what we call technical debt. And these will be hidden bugs that will surface later and be hard to fix. There'll be things that make it hard to maintain the software into the future. And it's actually much harder to go back and fix things and make them right after they've been sloppily put in my opinion. The other thing is, it's the whole story of the boy who called wolf. They're going to, next time you say, there's a deadline, there's an important demonstration for a VC, they'll be like, yeah, you said that 2 weeks ago, it wasn't anything. And now they aren't going to step up again, because we're only human. And when we're energized and feeling part of your team and feel like you're proud of what we've done together, that's when you have a team that will go the extra mile. If you have a team that's feeling beat up and they can't trust what you're saying, you're just not going to get that extra, mile out of that tank of gas. So watch out for that. Another one, pet peeve, sorry to be picking on you again here. It's I've heard people say when we're talking and planning, well, could we do this? Could we do that? And the developer will say, that idea is really hard. It would take, at least 2 weeks. And someone will come back, come on, how hard could it be? And that, just try to avoid doing that, because there's two terrible things that come from poo-pooing an estimate like that. One is developers are proud, so they'll feel like you're challenging them like they're not any good. And the other thing is, I think it just is going to encourage someone to cram 2 weeks of work into 3 days. And it's the same thing as I said before. You're going to put bugs and problems in that code. It's just better to give people the space and time they need to do it right. So the better way to approach is to have a frank conversation. Well, if that solution is too hard, are there other ways we could solve this business need with something simpler? And the so crazy thing about software is sometimes like elaborate, beautiful, crazy, complicated looking things are super easy to build. Like putting a map in an app, for example. There are fully built, scalable, scrollable mapping components you can drop in with just a few lines of code. But now drawing a pattern underneath that map would be like 2 weeks of work. It doesn't make any sense, but that's how these things are built. Someone, Google and a bunch of other people, have built mapping components because they have something to gain by providing that. But they didn't provide a way to customize it in that specific way. So you end up having to reinvent the wheel to attempt to do that. So that's why you just have to have a conversation, work together, and come up with a solution that fits your budget and solves your business needs. One final thought on this, well, how hard it is. Try to avoid falling in love with the latest UI gimmicks and fads because, we all have Instagram and Facebook and we see some cool way they work together. Those apps cost tens of millions of dollars to build. You can't have all those features on a startup's budget. I'm sorry. So find the things you can build and then, just have to live without some of them too. And this slide really is just a pitch back to the initial idea of a discovery before you get going. It's really easy, and I've seen it happen, to basically say, all right, I got all the funding, let's go, let's build this thing. And you spend $25,000 and you have this little thing you can kind of sign in with, but you're not really sure, another $50,000 tinkering, you added some screens, but then you didn't like them. And that money is gone. You can have $75,000 spent and you really don't have anything at all. So make sure you have a clear vision and you're really building something you need before you start development. Another thought related to that, let's be good partners, is design and development go hand in hand. And I've seen entrepreneurs start with hiring a design agency to help them design like an app or a website, independent of development. And then hiring development who doesn't know those designers. And my experience is it's sometimes hard to get those two to work together because really design and development are a team that need to communicate and work effectively together. So bringing in independent people who don't know each other just adds a bunch of new friction in terms of getting to know how they work and what screens this developer is effective at interpreting, and understanding kind of the shorthand. When the designer draws it this way, they mean it should behave in this way, because there's still room for interpretation there. The other thing is independent designers are often evaluated kind of on how cool their designs are and they jump off the page. But the reality is software should be probably 90% ordinary, because people are chatting, you're distracting me, because ordinary software, it's accessible, it's usable. It doesn't take any special thought on the part of the user to understand how to interact with it. You want special wow effects only once in a while to really make an impression about your brand or about the core functionality of your business. But if it's just like, how do I change my email address? Just make it ordinary. We don't need animating things that fly off the screen for that. It's just going to waste everyone's time. Okay, so I really am trying to fit this in 30 minutes. I'm not sure it's going to happen. So I might have to skip through some of the next section, but that's okay. I did want to touch now on your working relationship with your development team. And one of the things there is make sure that the technologies you're picking with them are appropriate. And really, you should have a team that can deliver the technology that is right for you, not just the technology that they know. Technology is evolving quickly, Some companies aren't keeping up, and so they'll keep selling last year's solutions just because that's all they know how to build. And that's not in your best interest. You really want modern solutions to these problems. You should have a way that you can preview the work they're doing through what's called like a staging architecture, which is a private version of the whole system just for you that's not the real world, versus a production system, which is once it's been published live, that's where the real users see it. You shouldn't have to manage a server. Modern cloud deployments is how technology is handled. All right, bye, Jay. And this means something like Amazon Web Services. So you don't have a Linux server in the cloud that has a finite amount of disk space and a certain version of the operating system. Instead, you're building on services from a company that specializes in those services. Like, you need a database, they give you that. You need storage, we have infinite storage. Just pay for what you use. You need to do some computation on the cloud. We have things called Lambdas. We have other solutions that let you do that. That's the right way to deploy code to the internet today. So you should expect that. Just some of the other features of cloud deployment, just what I kind of mentioned. I forgot I had a slide on this. Also, there's a lot of really high-level capabilities of cloud providers, so you want to make sure you go with that. Yeah, so I'm basically about out of time. So I did want to touch on the fact that quality is a feature. Make sure your development team gives you at least the option to have professional QA look at the product and make sure it's tested, has a test plan, goes through that test plan in every build. Make sure that what you're delivering is great, has automated testing. Sometimes as a startup, you can't afford this, and that's an option you choose not to buy. In that case, make sure you take it seriously. When they give you a build, go through it top to bottom, make sure it still all works and it's what you want. I can't tell you how often we get into, all right, we're doing the big launch tomorrow, and they're like, oh my gosh, where did this spelling error come from? Sorry, it's been there for 2 months. No one looked. Okay, so other thing as you're working, you should have regular communication. I really don't have time to go through these, but it's obvious stuff. You should have weekly meetings. Emails should be responded to in a timely fashion. You should never have to deal with a development team that goes dark and doesn't respond for weeks on end. Also, just my pet peeve, try not to blame people when something goes wrong. We're only human. Mistakes happen. It's called a bug. Thing is to go forward and focus on how to fix it. I'm not sure exactly how much time I have left. Is there a way I can see that? I don't know. My own little timer says I'm at 29 minutes. I'm probably a minute or two past that. So this may cut out at any moment, but let's just see how much more of this I can cover. So when you're planning for the future, yes, it's who knows? It could end at any moment. When you're planning for the future, I just like to remind people, software is a liability. So make sure that after that initial engagement is done, you have a plan for who's going to maintain that. These technologies evolve incredibly quickly, especially mobile. New operating systems, new devices, also integrations in the cloud are going to change. So you need to have a plan for continuing maintenance. Generally, I recommend a maintenance contract. All right, we finished it, great. We're going to engage you 2 days a month for the next year to keep it working. Also, think about your marketing plan. Yeah, iOS 14 is out tomorrow. Let's see how many apps break. Marketing is going to be key to making your business successful. You want those integrations in the app so that you can help understand what your customers are doing, reach out and engage with them. So plan for it. It's not actually that hard to drop in marketing SDKs, but it is hard if the whole project's over and you forgot to do it, because then you have to make a new statement of work to do it. Beta testing, both Android and iOS have capabilities for doing this. This lets you reach out to real-world testers. So you should have a development team that helps you walk through this. It's not super hard, but it does usually take someone who's been through it before. Similarly, app review. If you're releasing an app to the Google or Apple app stores, there's myriad rules you have to conform to, and invariably you get rejected. So make sure you have time in your schedule to work through that with app review and work with an experienced development team that'll help you avoid the common pitfalls, especially around my next slide, which is monetization. And actually, I brought this up because, back to having a development team that can trust you, make sure that everyone understands how you're going to make money on your business. Not because it's really any of their business, but because they want you to succeed. And if they're building a product that they don't believe can make you money, they really just think they're wasting their time. So think through how you're going to make money. And if it involves the App Store, purchasing an app, in-app purchases or subscriptions, these things are hard to get right. So you do want a team that's got some experience to help you through that. Okay, I did manage to blitz through. I'm sorry I was talking so fast. I really thought I had more time. So thank you very much. Again, another shout out to Matt and Aaron next Tuesday talking about how to find a good development team. And if you have questions, there's my email address. Thanks so much for coming. Yep. So I don't know what I do now. I'll probably just sit here and drink my LaCroix. Yeah, if you have a question, you can chat on the pod there, or just send me an email. They will come on and tell me I'm done. So apparently I have more time because no one's told me to leave yet. Yeah, QA. Sure. You can tell me if were there any spelling errors? Oh, is that question and answer? I mean, QA could mean either thing, Dustin. It could be question and answer or quality assurance. Oh, we have a question from the field. What are good questions to ask potential developers? It's probably challenging for someone who's not technical to really evaluate, is this person going to write good code for you? Probably the best questions are just general, like, what have you built before? What technologies do you choose and why? Not so much that you can evaluate them, but if they come back with like one answer, that might give a warning that they're just like a one-trick pony and that's all they know. But really, probably the best way to vet is to talk to people who have worked with them before, former clients and stuff. Can you ask for examples of work? Yeah, I mean, it seems like most software developers should be able to point at something that is out there in the world that you could look at and say, yeah, I built that. But I suppose if they're, it could be internal or corporate things, they may not have that to show you. It's funny. It says there's 1 hour and 37 minutes left. That can't be right. Yeah, well, I think we can just wrap it up there. Chip, you're just trying to see if you can stump me with one of these questions at this point, I think. So what Kelly said is that it will end 5 minutes after. So probably any moment it'll just cease to exist. So I think we should probably just end it here. Yep. Bye, everybody. I'm leaving.